Rubber baby buggy bumpers.
Chapter 7.
Heck yeah.
Have you ever had that perfect thought that gets you lost in the keyboard when your words turn into pictures? That happens to me when I write that down. This is a podcast about becoming a writer, my favorite books, authors, and everything about the written word. This is Write That Down.
How you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm well. Yeah, how's high school?
Oh my gosh. The first few weeks, I'm not going to lie, were rough. It was like a drastic, 0 to 100 situation.
Well, you attend the largest high school in the state of Ohio. It's like a college campus.
It really is. Like a drastic shift.
You're
but
growing up.
I don't like that.
Me neither.
That's kind of
Just
gross,
saying.
actually.
Your producer does not either. All right, but you're putting out a new episode.
I am. I'm glad to be doing this again. We started this entire podcast because I wanted to document my journey in achieving my dreams. Mm-hmm. One way that you have always encouraged me to do that was to get the advice from others who had been in my spot before me.
This platform really lends itself to that.
I came across J.M. Clark's news story, who is a published author here in the Cincinnati area and a bookstore owner. So he's living my dream.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do.
Yes, entrepreneur and published author.
And so you set up an interview?
I did.
And he's joining us now.
He is.
So the first thing I want to ask you is, what was the moment where you knew that you were going to be an author?
Okay, I've never told anybody this story, so you'll be the first. I knew. First, let me start out by saying I've always been an avid reader. I was the kid at all the book events at school, buying up all the books. I've always been a big reader, but I never saw myself as quite a writer. I was always good at writing, but I never really wanted to be a writer, like in elementary school, junior high. Well, what happened was my mother moved away from my home school when I was a junior in high school. So I had to make all new friends, and that's kind of hard to do when you're a junior in high school, when you've been going to school with the same people. So I had to go to this whole new school, and I was just not feeling it. I did not want to do it, and I was kind of a loner. So I was just kind of sticking to myself, listening to music in my headphones. And I had this English teacher. I forget her name, but because I was only at that school for a year. But she gave me this book because she knew I was a reader. And it was called The Black House from Stephen King, Richard Bachman. And it's a psychological thriller horror type of thing, but it changed everything for me. It was so good, so gripping, and it just took me to another place. While I was in this school, I had no friends. I really didn't feel any kind of comfort or any closeness with anybody. That book just changed everything for me. And at that point, I kind of knew I wanted to create that feeling for other people. And I had the confidence that I could, if I continued to read books and I started to learn and understand the craft of writing these stories and developing these characters, that I would be able to do that. And that's what I've tried to do with the 3 books that I have written and, the ones that I will write. So, yeah, that was the moment for me. Junior year in high school, reading The Black House from Stephen King.
So tell me about your books. So I know that you have 3 books out.
Yeah, it's a 3-book series. It's a post-apocalyptic, sci-fi series. It's an odd story because it was. I wrote the book in 2018, came out in 2018, and the book is about a pandemic that comes to the world, kills a bunch of people, and the people who are still alive, the government pushes them into quarantine facilities, which kind of came true in 2019. So it was odd that I wrote a book kind of about that, and then it kind of happened. But it's a 3-book series about that called The Palace Program. That's what the entire series is called. So, yeah.
The one question I really have been asking myself, especially, is what came first for you? Was it your bookstore, or was it your books and your author career?
My author career came first. I wanted to do that first. I always wanted to open a bookstore. Me and my wife, when we travel to different states, we always go to the best bookstore in the area. Always an indie bookstore, like a mom and pop's family-owned bookstore. So we always do that, and we get back in the car afterwards, excited. Oh my God, that bookstore was so amazing. So we knew we always wanted to do it, but I thought it would happen when I was a lot older. Maybe 50, 60 years old or something like that. I'm only 38 now. So first I wanted to write, and I put out those books, and the first one became a bestseller. and it got nominated for a few awards. And I'm like, all right, this is the career path for me, because my prior career path was banking. I was a banker at different banks in Cincinnati. And that was just, to pay bills. I didn't really have any affinity towards it. It didn't make me feel any kind of way. But once I got that first book out and I got the reaction from people, and then I wrote the other two, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And those books did so well when it was time to like start a business. It had to be a bookstore. And, we kind of just went for it.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to go to your bookstore, and it was maybe the coolest bookstore I've ever been to, like, in my entire life. You had the coolest mural up on the wall. You had a coffee shop in it. It was amazing.
Thank you.
But your bookstore is called the Tome Book Store, and I want to know how it got its name.
I gave it a lot of thought, probably too much thought on the store name. I go through all these different names. Should I use my name? Should I use our family name? Should I, come up with something, kind of cliche and use a popular fiction character's name? And I was reading a story one time. I forgot. It was some type of fantasy. I'm big into fantasy books. It wasn't Game of Thrones. It was something else. But anyway, the name Tome came up. And basically Tome just means like big scholarly book. It's it's a trope that you would see in things like Harry Potter or something. So it's like a big book of spells type of thing. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, I have never really heard this word before. But now that I know what it means, I feel like that'd be a great name for a bookstore. And I kind of canvassed it on social media with some of my following and see if they liked it. And everybody loved it. They like, you got to do that. And yeah, that's kind of how it came to be.
Yeah.
Just reading a book and the word popped up and I said, this is it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it sounds really, really cool.
Thank you.
So you did not go to college for business, though. I looked on your website, and you went to college and majored in English literature.
I had two majors, so I have my degree in business.
Okay.
And I also went to school as an English major. So I stopped in college about 22 credits short of being an English teacher. And I always wanted to be a teacher because of that English teacher that changed my life with that book, and all the English teachers that ever changed my life. I always hated every other subject in school. I couldn't stand math. Science was okay. Health was okay. And I liked those a little bit because writing and reading was involved in those. But I always loved English. I would take 8 English classes a year if I could. So I always wanted to be an English teacher. But, life happens, and it's really sad that teachers don't make enough money to really be able to do the things that they need to do. But that was part of the reason why I could not continue with that major, because I wouldn't have been able to make money. And I have, 7 children. Me and my wife have 7 children. So I kind of just left that by the wayside. So yeah, I was an English major. And also I do currently have a business degree, which I've had since 2012.
Oh, wow. So you were able to pursue both.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to do, is I want to major in creative writing and business.
Oh, yeah.
And
you could do it.
Oh, gosh. It gives me a lot of hope, and it inspires me a lot to keep pushing towards my dreams.
Oh, for sure.
Going off of that kind of inspiration, who or what inspires you? I know that you said you have a large family. So how are they portrayed in your book?
In my book, oh, you mean like in books that I've written?
Yes.
I've never actually put my own family in the books. I have put people that are close to me, like friends, or big one is coworkers, people I went to school with, things like that. Because you want to use people who you know in real life as a stencil to your characters in your book. It makes them more believable. So like if you have a buddy or a friend or a family member that has like this nervous tick that they do all the time, you want to write that into a character. Certain faces that they might make, or certain behaviors that they might have. You want to put these into your characters because it makes them more believable. It makes them real to the reader, because no matter how unique we think certain people are, if you mention it to somebody else, they know somebody like that too. And so it kind of reverberates in your writing, and as the reader is, reading your book. So I haven't actually done close family members, but I'm only 3 books in. I'm writing my 4th book right now. I'll be writing a 5th one in November, so plenty time to get my wife and kids into books. I just haven't done it as of yet.
So you say you're 5th in November. That's a perfect segue. I know that from a news story that my dad, one of his coworkers did, you do something called like a National Novel Writing Month.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo. So the first book that I ever wrote was The New Kings of Tomorrow, which is book 1 of the Palace program. I wrote that back in 2018 in November. So that was my first time writing the book because I did this NaNoWriMo challenge. And basically, NaNoWriMo is it's like a national month where writers try to write a novel in 1 month. Don't have to be published or anything in that month, but you want to get it all written. So usually they try to say get 50,000 words, and that's enough for a novel. So I did that. So I was able to write my first book in that month. And obviously you got to go through editing and formatting and different stuff like that. So it changes along the way, but the entire novel was written that month. And we're going to do that again here at the bookstore. So the bookstore is going to support different writers all throughout the city who come in. We'll all support each other. We'll all push each other to get a novel written that month. That's why I'm finishing up my book 4 as we speak. I should be done by the end of this month, early next month. And that gives me time to outline another story to write it in November. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Does it take you on average to write a book in a month?
No, you just kind of got to be disciplined. It's really not as rough as it sounds. If you're able to do, I say 1,500, 2,000 words a day. And if you write every day, and I say just about 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day, put your phone down and actually focus, you could finish a book in 30 days. I know some people. I know a woman in one of the creative writing groups. So, man, she wrote 40 books in 1 year.
40?
40.
That's a
Because
lot
she
of books.
takes it very seriously. She writes 8 hours a day.
Right.
She doesn't miss a day. She do it 8 hours a day.
Yeah, that's insane. So
Yeah,
I know that
is.
not every
She's magical.
yeah. Not every process is like that, though. Like, I know for a fact that I cannot sit down and focus for 8 hours straight, and I know that very few people can.
Same.
So I was wondering what your process looks like. What does your day-to-day writing kind of daily process look like?
My process, first of all, I outline. So the outline should take you about 2 weeks if you're vigilant. I outline it, and then once I have the whole story outline, I know everything about my characters. I know the beginning, middle, I know the ending of my story. Then I sit down for chapter 1, and my writing system goes this way. I wake up in the morning, I get coffee, I go to Starbucks. Sometimes I try to write at my own bookstore, but it's hard because everybody knows me, so I can't focus because everybody keeps coming in talking to me while I'm trying to write. So I have to retire away to a different bookstore or a different coffee shop so I can focus. And then I write for about 2.5 hours, roughly. I leave my phone in the car and I write for about 2.5 hours. And then I leave it alone for the day. I don't try to edit it. I don't do anything to it. I don't touch it until later that night. So while I'm in bed watching a television show or something like that, I'll get the computer back out and I'll read over the chapter that I wrote that day. And while I'm reading over that chapter, I'm adding things to it. I'm editing it. I'm fixing it. Because that first 2.5 hours of the day, I'm just really getting the words down. I'm getting the story down. I'm getting the chapter down. I'm not checking grammar. I'm not checking sentence structure. I'm just getting the words down. And then that night, I read over it and fix it, add little details, add cutesy words, nice descriptions and things like that. And then I move on the next day to the next chapter or 2, 2 chapters if they're short chapters, 1 chapter if it's a long chapter. And if you can do that for 30 days straight, you'll be done with your novel. And that's really only about 3 hours of writing for the day.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's not bad. You just got to stick to it. Honestly, I go by this one rule that I get from Stephen King. The rule is if you cannot finish your book in a season, you're not very excited about the story and you should probably move on. So you don't have to write a whole book in a month. But if it takes you longer than a season, say the fall, the winter, the summer, you're not very excited. And you should probably move on because you're kind of forcing it at that point. And I kind of go by that. If I can't finish the book in 3 months, it's time to move on. I'll shelf it, maybe come back to it a couple years later when my mind is back in that place. But I really hold strongly to that point there.
See, I very much am different. Like I work different than that, but I also go to school, I play sports, I do all these other things. And so for me, it's just whenever I can find time. And I know that like
Exactly.
finding time at least a little bit during the day and being disciplined and moving on with that will
Mhm.
be what takes me to get to my end goal, even if I am busy, and I am doing
Oh
homework
yeah,
and all
for
these other
sure. I
things.
couldn't
So I
even
think that that's
imagine.
something that I need to work on for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine writing a story when I was in high school. I played basketball all throughout high school. I had friend groups, and it would have been very challenging. It's doable, but it would not be the system that I have now. Now I'm an adult, and I have certain time put away for that. So I wouldn't tell anybody in high school or college who has so much more on their plate to do that system. Do what works best for you.
Yes. That's one thing that I really, really like about your bookstore is you have just as many, like as much space for books as you do for seating area. So when
Right.
I went, there were probably, that 3 or 4 authors just sitting there all working and, they had either their earbuds in or they were listening to the music that you were playing. Like it just was the most, like the lighting was dim. It was just like the most aesthetic writing place ever. And
Thank
I
you so
texted my co-author and was like, we need to come here. I was taking pictures all over the place. I was like, we need to come here and write like every day now. She's like, this is what's going to get us excited. So like you
Yeah.
definitely are accomplishing what you set out to do and inspiring others.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was a big thing for me. I wanted to create a bookstore that I would want to come right in. I wanted the murals on the wall, which, will kind of jog your creative juices and get you thinking about different things. And I wanted to make it dim so it's not so bright because I know a whole lot of people have issues with brightness and it bothers them. And obviously coffee, because you want to have some energy. You want to be able to get up and, actually have the energy to write for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I created the store and it's doing so well. I've became a bit popular because of it. And now I can't sit down in my own store
Yeah,
and write. I have to, go other places. But it's a good problem to have.
it is a good problem to have. What keeps you disciplined? Going back to your process a little bit, you sit down every day for those 2.5 hours. What
Mhm.
keeps you doing that? How do you stick to that? How do you stick to that plan?
It's hard to stick to it if you have so much other stuff going. But the thing is, once you write 1 or 2 books, and if your books have like touched the readers in a certain kind of way, they won't allow you to stop. They contact you all the time. They inbox you. They message you. They send you emails. Hey, when the next book coming? When that is what keeps me going because the kid that I am and the places that I come from in my childhood, I would never believe the version of me as a child wouldn't believe that I've written books that touch people, all over the country in the ways that it has. So I feel a responsibility to them to keep the books coming that these people want to read my thoughts and the worlds that I create. And it's like, okay, keep it going. And so whenever I start to slack off or I get busy with other things in life, I get an email or I get a message. Hey, when's book 4 coming? Oh, when's the new book that you told me you were writing coming? And it's like, all right, time to get back on it. Get up in the morning,
Yeah.
double down. All right, there's going to be a 5,000 word day. And then, I get back to it because I feel like I owe my readers everything because this whole route that I've taken in life has totally been because of them.
And I feel like we are very similar in that way. I know that people in my life have come to me and said that your podcast has inspired me to do XYZ. And so, then I'm like, all right, Dad, we're making another episode today. Like, it just, when people come to me and are like, you inspired me, like the first time I heard that, I literally cried. It was the most amazing moment ever.
Yeah.
And so to hear
Yeah.
that and hear that it still means that much after you've been as successful as you are, I'm really excited for that to happen to me as well.
Oh, it's gonna happen. And you're starting out young. I wish I would have started out as young as you are. Yeah, it's gonna be great, and I'm excited to watch your how you do with your first book, how things go with that, and if there's anything that I can do to help you and your co-author out, I'd be happy to help you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for me or really any other young authors or authors in general? And what do you wish that you could tell everyone who has that dream or has that goal?
Okay, it's what I would say to anybody who wants to write books or who has thought about it is it's not too big of an idea, because I felt like it was. I felt like, I read a lot and I can write, but a book is just so big and it's so difficult, and I got to come up with all these characters, and I'm just not that smart. Like, I'm smart, but I'm not smart enough to do that. Like, these are special people who do these types of things. And the special part about somebody who do these type of things is their consistency. Their brain isn't different from yours. They are just consistent and they are driven. And that's all you need. If you read a lot, because that's the prerequisite to being a writer. If you don't read, you can't write. So that's another thing that a lot of authors say, that you might want to, pin to your computer. If you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. You cannot be a writer who never reads books. So as long as you're reading on a consistent basis and, keeping the ideas fresh, you can do it. It's very simple. All you have to do is outline. I use a certain type of outline, which is called the snowflake method outline. You can Google it. It's an amazing outline. Helps you figure out everything about your book before chapter 1. You know about all your characters, their hair color, eye color, nervous tics, their size, their mom's job, their father's job, what college their parents went to. You know literally everything about your characters before you start, and that makes it so much easier for them to write. So I would say, no idea is too big. You can do this. You just have to want to do it. Remember, I told you, 3 hours of writing per day. You could finish a book in a month, a whole book. And say you can't do 3 hours. Say you can only do 1 hour a day. It'll take you 3 months. And that's not hard to do at all if you really want to be an author. And if you start a book and it's not going well, that doesn't mean that you're not fit to be an author. That just means you're not very passionate about that specific story. Take some time, do some more reading, and another idea will come to you. So just be patient with yourself.
So speaking of reading, what are you reading right now?
Actually, one of the good things about being a bookstore owner is that I figured out just this year is that we get books early. We get them a bit before the general public. So I got Stephen King's new book a week ago, Fairy Tale. It just came out today, September the 6th. And I got it last week. So I'm finishing that up now. I'm about 75% of the way through. And it's amazing. But I'm biased. I'm a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. So just check the ratings online. Everybody will tell you how they feel about it. The rating should be out tonight because it came out today. So I love it. And that's what I'm reading at this point. And then I'm going to move on to The Talisman from Stephen King, because I hear that the people who created Stranger Things is doing the Talisman TV show.
Oh my.
So yeah, I want to get refreshed on that before that comes out.
So what genre do you say that you like to read the most?
I guess I would say maybe suspense thriller. Not much in the crime novels, but kind of like a little horror take to it. The Mr. Mercedes series is probably my favorite series, but I read all over. I read Game of Thrones. I read Hunger Games. I read pretty much everything. I'm just a big reader in general, and it hasn't helped that now I have a bookstore because I have every book now. So
that's one of the perks I'm looking forward to, being able to own every book.
Yeah, and while you're at work and it gets slow, you can just pull a book out and start reading. So for the most part, I read everything because I want to stay up on the comings and goings of all the different authors. But probably my favorite would be suspense thriller.
Switching notes a little bit. So you are a member of Cincinnati Fantasy Writers and Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. So what is that?
That is a big creative writing group. All of us are writers. And this goes from people who might be a server at a big restaurant, they're a writer, to somebody who was a teacher at Xavier. They were an English teacher at Xavier University or UC. So all different types of writers. We all get together, and I would say I haven't done it in some months because I've been busy with the bookstore. So in a month, we will meet up and have like social night where we all just like meet out at a bar or a coffee shop, and we all talk about books and our own books and what we're writing and give each other advice about, self-publishing and stuff like that. And then the other Like, could we do it every 2 weeks? Then the next week, we will all meet at, say, a coffee shop. And those are called critique nights. And this is where anybody in the big group can bring a chapter that they've written. And then we all read it at the same time. And then we give them advice on it. So it's a night where we can critique each other writing. Hey, this is good. You might want to change this about this character. I felt this way about that chapter, type of thing. And it's a good way to get feedback on what you're writing before it actually comes out, until you actually put it out to the world. So we do that once a month as well. And I've learned so much from that group. I've learned so many things about writing, so many things about self-publishing my own work through that group. There's no way I would have became a writer without them.
So you self-publish, correct? So you just said,
Yes.
Okay. So what is that process for you?
It's very easy. I thought it was going to be hard. I thought it was going to be tough, but no, it's very easy. I self-published through KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. So you get right on Amazon, go to KDP, and you can upload your manuscript and your book cover and your, everything, and you set the price, what you want it to be, and you could just start selling from that way. I prefer that. For one, you get to keep, obviously, the majority of the money, but when you self-publish, you control everything. So you control your book cover, because a lot of times if you're with a publisher, they kind of got dibs on that. You control your book cover. You control what goes into your book. Again, if you have a publisher, they can decide that, maybe these few chapters shouldn't be there, or this character is not good enough, or whatever the case may be. I like full control over my works, and so I do self-publishing. So after my first book was a success, I did get offers from publishing companies to do the other books, but I went against that. I prefer self-publishing. Not to say that I want to do a publishing deal, but right now I'm not interested in it.
So you said that you have more control, which is obviously a perk, but one of the things that I've heard is that you have to market it yourself and you have to get it out yourself. Like, how did you manage to do that?
I'm really good on social media. I grew up with it. Social media came out when I was around 18 years old, 19 years old in college, and I just kind of grew up with it. So I'm pretty good at it. And so there's different things that you can do. I do writing workshop classes here at the Tome Book Store, and I help people out with that of, once you got your book written, now how do you market it? And there are tons of different things you can do. You could get beta readers. It's different ways to get beta readers. I can help you, get reviews on your book just by, different social media things that you can do. For me, that didn't deter me, because with a lot of publishers, you have to do your own marketing anyway. If you talk to authors who go with publishers, even some of the big ones, you still have to do your own publishing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
In most cases with a publisher, the benefit to it is you don't have to pay for your book cover, you don't have to pay for your editing, and you don't have to pay for anything. They pay for everything. But you lose a certain percentage of your works and you lose the control. But you still have to do most of your marketing, unless you become a really big author and you're like a bestseller, then they would put some funds behind your marketing. But in most cases, with I say the 98% of people who aren't bestsellers, they have to do their own marketing. Yeah. And so if I'm going to have to do my own marketing anyway, I would rather own the majority of my works. But it's all different for everybody, and all different publishers are offering something different. So I would say with your first book, check out all of your options, because some publishers do have really good deals and some don't. But, that's with everything in life.
You've written 3 books. So how has that publishing process differed from book 1 to book 2 to book 3?
Well, the publishing has been exactly the same. Do KDP on all 3 because it's a series. So they're all on Kindle Direct Publishing. One thing that is interesting, so like if you do really good on your first book and you start getting, some good reviews on the book, what happens is audiobook companies will come to you and want to turn your book into an audiobook. And this is a lot of fun, because a lot of times they'll pay you to do it, and they'll let you pick the producer and the voice actor for the audiobook. And that was a lot of fun. And that's something kind of totally outside of regular publishing, because it's an audiobook, but you get paid to do that. You give up a little bit more of the share of your book, But it makes it to where your book is on a whole nother platform now, because there are millions of people who just would rather hear books than to read them, because, they may travel a lot or go on walks a lot. So that is something that I did with my 3 books. They are all on Audible, so they can be, experienced in that way. So that's a lot of fun. But as far as regular publishing, it's exactly the same process. You are in control of everything. You hop online, you upload your book cover, you upload the manuscript, and, the website has things that it does to make sure everything is correct. The printing is correct, and then you can have Amazon send you a copy of the book before it comes out, so you can make sure it looks perfect. If you give them the okay from that, that's the style of book that will go out to your fans who buy the book. So it's pretty cool.
You seem to be as much about giving back to the writing community, especially in the Cincinnati area, as you are as passionate about writing itself. Where does that come from, and why is that so important to you?
Because I think that writing and reading is so important. And what I saw as a kid growing up in school, because I was pretty popular. I was a jock. I was an athlete. I'm really good at sports. I'm 6'4", 200 and something pounds. So I'm a big guy, but I was always a big reader. And like in that sports groups, it's like, oh, you're a reader, you're a nerd. And a lot of people think that reading is like a nerd thing to do. And it's just a very general thing that we all should be doing. So I want kids to know that you can still be cool, you can still be popular, you can still be who you are, and also still read books. Like it's just a form of entertainment, like making music and stuff. Everybody's gung-ho on making music. Everybody wants to be a rapper or a singer or a dancer, whatever the case may be. I want to be able to be a voice for the kids that want to be a writer. And a lot of times they don't know how to even get started. And so I want to kind of be that medium to show them like, hey, I did it. I wasn't anything special. I hadn't written anything over 20 pages since college. And my first book was almost 300 pages and got nominated for awards. And I'm not anything special. I was able to do it just because I hunkered down and I was driven to get it done. Anybody can do that if they have the passion to do it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I know that I learned a lot, especially about your publishing process and about your writing process. So I thought that was really interesting.
Awesome. And if there's anything that you ever need help with or just some advice, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you.
Good interview right there. Good insight. I think it's great. I do want to put this out before you continue. His 3 books that have been published so far that you can purchase are New Kings Tomorrow, Tomorrow's End, and Tomorrow's Wrath by J.M. Clark. You could buy them at the Tome Book Store, which is located in Mount Washington, which is a suburb of Cincinnati on Beachmont Avenue. You can also go to his website, tomebookstore.com. That's how you can find him on social media as well. He is on Audible and Amazon. You could purchase those books there. It's a trilogy. Is that how you guys refer to that?
Yes, a trilogy, 3 books in a series, yes.
I started the first one. It's been great so far.
I'm excited to read it after you.
Here's the deal. So, first big-time interview under your belt.
Yeah.
Anybody else that you're...
Next on my list for sure is Rob Bouillet, which if you've been a frequent listener, you know that he is the reason that I wanted to start writing.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh gosh, I think I'd be too busy fangirling to actually interview. All
right, we'll put the producer to work and see what we can do.
Yeah. So thank you for listening to Write That Down. I'm the Aspiring Author, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Write That Down, the podcast of an aspiring author. Now, this is the part where I'm supposed to give a shameless plug of all my social media accounts, but my parents won't let me have any.
Write that down.
Thanks for listening. Happy writing.